Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of kind of the modern
Now it's going to get
UFO.
dangerous.
Now
It's
it's going
going
to
to
get
get interesting.
dangerous. But real quick, I
Yeah.
want to shout out the super chat. John Smith said, found RPK a couple years ago. Very informative. Thanks. Thank you, John Smith. And then friend of the show, Logan Black with a super sticker, 99 cents. Thank you, Logan. And thank you for that great, whatchamacallit. And also, I don't know if you guys saw, we were actually currently competing with Lou is on Linda Moulton Howe right now. Lou is on Earth Files right now, so quite the thing to compete against. And we did just lose Tupa. He has family stuff, but we're still dooming here. All right, so Chris Bledsoe is where a lot of this modern 2027 stuff comes from. This guy Nick Hinton did a really great thread on it, which Dan Warren over on Twitter narrated. So we're just gonna play that real quick, just so we can kind of get a brief, quick rundown of who this guy is, and then we're gonna talk about him a little more and like in relation to the what we're covering tonight, this like coming apocalypse allegedly.
Story, as summarized by Nick Hinton. Part 1 of this encounter started on January 8, 2007, when Chris, 3 coworkers, and his son had an encounter that included a face-to-face interaction, which included hours of missing time. Chris did not want to share his story because he was afraid for his reputation, but he eventually contacted MUFON, who created a documentary about his encounter, and they documented several anomalies, including Chris being healed of Crohn's disease. During hypnotic regression, he spoke about being taken on board the craft, where the occupants informed him that they were here to serve creation. However, the MUFON documentary made them look foolish, and his family was ridiculed by the public. High strangeness continued for the next 5 years, and Chris began to believe that the ETs were angelic. Chris stopped telling his story until 2012, when he met the lady. And this is when his experiences went from creepy to awe-inspiring. Having just met the lady in 2012, high strangeness continued to occur, including objects materializing out of thin air. The lady and these anomalies got the attention of Tom DeLonge, Jim Semivan, and others from the CIA and NASA, and John B. Alexander, who was impressed by Chris's newfound ability to do remote viewing. At this point, Chris found out that the MUFON documentary was actually a hit piece that was orchestrated by people that do not want the spiritual aspect of UFOs being discussed. The higher-ups at NASA take the lady serious and believe she's been appearing to humans for thousands of years, and is here to help humanity transition into the age of Aquarius. She brings a warning that Mother Nature will literally shake us off of her if we are too destructive, and that the wisest path forward is by choosing love over fear. Nick states that he doesn't know if he believes all of it, but he at least knows the phenomenon is real, and that you look at this information presented with an open mind, and recommends that you follow Ryan.
All right, so real quick there, any thoughts initially on Chris Bledsoe? I got a few Chris Bledsoe slides. I guess you guys kind of can maybe formulate when you want to go in on your thoughts on this, because I know you guys both have a lot of thoughts on this. I got this one, and then we have the next slide is kind of Jim Semivan kind of saying why the intelligence community is interested. Then I got a slide of him on Concrete where he's saying what the lady told him about 2027, and then we got another one of those. But so just kind of broad strokes, the Chris Bledsoe story. Do you guys have any thoughts on this?
Fringe, I'll let you take the lead on Bledsoe.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on Bledsoe. Do you want to just play the next two?
Yeah, let's do the next two then, because yeah, I love the way you think about that stuff. Here we go.
I just think they're a great.
For the audience, this is Jim Semivan. Sorry, he was part of TTSA, and there on the bottom too, we see one thing about Bledsoe, and this is what always intrigued me, whether you believe him or not. You know, there's no denying that there's a lot of like spooky intel people that are interested in him and like believe him in many cases, right? They could be manipulating him for whatever reason, but you know, especially on UFO Twitter, right? There's a lot of experiencers out there, you know what I mean? And not all of them have this many like intel people at their house all the time. So you got Hal Putoff and Chris on the bottom left, Chris Bledsoe, and shoot, why am I blanking on that guy's name? Come on, you get me? Alexander. There we go, John Alexander. And then Jim Semivan on the right. And so he's going to tell you about why they're all these intel people, and this is just like the tip of the iceberg, why they're all interested in him, and it has to do with the lady. So let's watch this.
All-American family, but when Chris went through, and I believe every word he tells me, and about this, and not only do I believe every word he tells me, he attracted the attention of a lot of people: DIA, NASA, CIA, other agencies, everybody wanted to get close to him. Everybody wanted to know as much as information as they possibly can, because his experience it took in not only the classic abduction scenario, because he had missing time, right, where he had no idea what was going on, right, but he also met the entities themselves, and he also met the lady.
Yeah,
and not many people meet the lady, and I think. And the lady is an element in all of this that really hasn't been explored very much. I will tell you that in some circles it's taken very, very seriously, but it hasn't been explored. The Catholic Church looked at it, because a lot of the sightings, Medjugorje, Fatima.
Yeah.
Lourdes, they were all the lady appeared. None of the children that saw any of this ever claimed it was the Virgin Mary. It was just the lady. It was just a lady who showed up.
Right.
And I doubt the Virgin Mary had blonde hair and blue eyes. She was Semitic. So, and of course, the lady would lie, and the lady, would scare the living hell out of them, and fire and brimstone sometimes lovely messages. A typical abduction scenario where these beings come to people and they tell them stories. They have a line about the environment and things along those lines, but they're generally there's a trickster element to it. There is a physical, not very nice physical element to it. There's a very strong sexual element to it. It's not, sexual is homoerotic in some cases.
Very strange. And I just wanted to add there too, the TTSA press conference right there on the bottom right here. Oh wait, you can't see my cursor. There we go. Right here. This was on the 100-year anniversary of Fatima, and I think all these guys are really into the lady, really into this idea of the Lady of Fatima. We got one more, and then we'll break down what we all think about this.
Well, actually, Panda, isn't it getting super weird right here? So they already know about the lady. They know she's a trickster and that she's not nice, and there's a homoerotic element to this.
Right? Yeah, that was strange. Even when I was clipping, I was like, I don't remember him saying that.
It's getting weird. And yet we're saying that she's actually the Holy Spirit as well. I mean, come on.
Can you double click on the homoerotic element when we're done with the clips? Because that needs to be kind of explained. Oh no, I meant like metaphorically double click.
Oh.
I mean, like if Fringe could go into that, because that would suggest that maybe the lady isn't a lady when it comes to Bledsoe.
Well, right? it might suggest the lady is not a lady, and it does go to some very, and I'm actually surprised to hear him say that. So these are, I haven't.
Right, I was too. It's pretty fringy of him, right?
Oh, super. And so now we're getting into the really dark stuff. And if you want to hear about this kind of stuff, you're going to want to listen to people like James Bartley. James Bartley himself is an abductee, and he's in touch with many other abductees who have had this experience of what platform are we on here? Of forced homoerotic encounters in an effort to change sexuality. It's super dark, super weird, and I'm really actually surprised to hear Semivan even comment on it in regards to the lady. I didn't think I was going to get that much doom out of him tonight.
There's definitely a lot semi-doom in the Semivan today.
Yeah, no, he goes in there, and Tom DeLonge was really a lot more overt too. I didn't clip it, but Tom DeLonge is like, if you know the story, he's talking about Chris Bledsoe. He doesn't name him. He's like, there's this one guy who thinks he's talking to like a lady basically, and they cure some people's cancer, but they give other people cancer, and like you can't really trust them. And yeah, I'm kind of the belief that like I don't even think this lady is a lady. And Tuba, are you there actually? Or I saw a back channel. You said you had to leave, but I think you came back up. I don't know if you are or not, but he's seen the lady, and I have seen within the community, and that's kind of where all these things kind of converge. Is I'll just say it. I think there's a cult operating like beneath the community, because I've heard from many experiencers that like there's a group of people that like are very interested in experiencers who see the lady and have apocalyptic visions, and in kind of getting these experiencers, quote unquote, to like maybe kind of like have their worldview, have their outlook, kind of like push their narratives, adopt their kind of thing. And I've just,
Well,
yeah.
I can actually speak to that personally
Yeah.
because it's exactly what happened to me. Is the lady, and look, do I think every single sighting of the lady is the same exact entity? I would never say that. But Chris Bledsoe is essentially saying that. He said that in the space the other day. He was asked several times, and he seems to believe this is all the same entity. So I literally downloaded the lady, like exactly how you see her there. Only in my case, her hair was actually up in a very just like a fancy updo. She was very regal, blonde, blonde hair, blue eyes, high cheekbones, gorgeous.
Can I ask like what was happening before that?
Um,
Did anything trigger it, or just you're hiking out and about?
Oh no, something triggered it. So it's
Okay.
very.
It's personal. Yeah, that's
I
why I was
don't
like,
wanna get
a lot of these
totally
things are
into
kind
the
of.
story, just because that would hijack the space. But so she basically downloaded herself into my body and was looking out of my eyes for maybe 3 days after that. And then she appeared again very suspiciously while I was actually going for deliverance. And that's a whole other story in and of itself. But I'll make it very short and say I was walked down this road that you're kind of hinting at. This whole road, it was very much about spirituality and religion, and being walked down a lot of the same exact thing. The aliens are angels. They're the good guys. They're here to save us. It's the same exact narrative that Bledsoe is putting out. Almost the same exact thing happened to me. And so it's a thing. I mean, whatever this entity is, whoever her minions are, she's on a campaign, and she's, going after a ton of different people in a very similar way. It's fascinating.
My gut tells me that it's a front, right? The lady front. I think there's some kind of entity that just knows that, like, if I just look like a pretty blonde lady, I'll calm the human I'm interacting with. Do you guys kind of get that vibe?
Well, I think we have to look at that with all of these entities, because many, many times, for myself, my own experiences, many of the abductees in the community, and all throughout the abduction research, are these entities who are actually just putting on a projection of something that is attractive and something that is appealing for a human to look at. And when that projection is dropped, it's anybody's guess what you're going to find behind it. It's usually not pleasant. So am I saying there is no female entity actually looking like this? I can't say that. What I can say is very frequently these entities we see are not actually what they're appearing to be.
Very good. And again, it's like this seems like such a fringe corner of ufology in the grand scheme of things, but like a lot of these movers and shakers are hanging out with Chris. And as Jim Semivan says right there, it's like because of this lady connection. So like, again, I don't even know how I feel about the lady, but I do know that a lot of the movers and shakers of disclosure like take it very seriously. So make of that what you will.
If I can just say really quickly, like this is the nexus point for the Roman Catholic Church. They made it easier, right? They had too much bureaucracy. They made it easier to classify something as paranormal. And it didn't seem like they really touched UFOs at all, but it's all NHI if something is paranormal and it's sentient plasma. So if the Bledsoe phenomenon is a UFO phenomenon, then that means what the Catholic Church is talking about is a UFO phenomenon as well, because it seems like sentient plasma or whatever the orbs are, they can produce these religious experiences. And the lady sometimes shows up in all black, right? Like wearing all black. I think there is a black skin version of the lady too. It's all the lady. And the
Ulrich, have you seen the lady?
I haven't seen the lady.
Okay. Tupa has. I don't know if you guys know that, but Tupa has, Fringe has. A lot of people in the community have. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. But what I'm saying, the overlap is sex and religion, that this woman appears extremely sexual and attractive. And there's a deep religious, I think the term is numinosity. There's a numinosity to it. And that comes up every single time.
And she has an alter ego. So the lady is also Hathor. Christopher's pointing this out right now. But her alter ego is this Sekhmet. And she is the goddess of absolute blood, death, and destruction. So the lady shadow is actually roaming the earth, claiming to be the lady. So it's very interesting.
And we just started a new Pornhub category. It's already called Goth Mommy, all black. People are going to go nuts on this, but it's unavoidable.
There it is. Boom. All right, now we're going to get into what the lady told him. So we have all these intel people interested in this South Carolina dad, you know, salt of the earth American, or whatever the phrase is. Salt of the earth is a good thing. He seems like a great guy. But here's what that he says was relayed to him. Shouts out Danny.
Let me tell you what she told me. She said that there was a shift in the powers of the heavens and that she had been away. The feminine energy was about to come back and there wasn't no stopping it, and that there would be a shift, and that shift would be into Aquarius, and that the divine feminine would come back as the energy that would create 1,000 years of peace. That's what she told me. There'd be trouble first, but in time, that peace would come to this world.
All right, so it goes Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius,
Okay.
Aquarius, followed by Pisces.
Okay, so we get a long way to go before we're in Taurus again.
Yep.
Interesting.
But you know, the lady in Egypt is depicted, Hathor, with bull horns or a bull next to her. Many countries, the lady is always depicted as with a bull, or either have bull horns with a solar disc or beside the bull. So it goes hand in hand with her throughout many countries.
All right, so I have another clip a little bit later, like 2 slides away, but I think this would be a good time, maybe Fringe, for you to kind of break down some of the manipulation you saw of the lady from Chris Bledsoe's own words in his book and his accounts. What were some of the things that really stood out to you of like this? Because Chris Bledsoe, it's important to note, like he's all in on the lady, right? He's all in on like she's here to help, she's a great entity, but you didn't see it that way, and I really like hearing your perspective on that.
Well, I think it's important just for everyone just to step back and see if what he's saying is even, does it even sound right? Is it logical? Is it actually what happened? So I always like to start off by saying anything I have to say about the Bledsoe case has nothing to do with Bledsoe himself. Everything that I think about the Bledsoe case is actually to do with the entity that he's involved with, nothing to do with him. From my understanding, he's a great guy. He's a religious guy. He's very kind-hearted, and he believes he is helping and healing people, from the bottom of his heart. So, but what I have to say about his entity and having my own experience with the lady is helpful as well. So what they just covered is the shift in the powers of the heavens, and that she's going to usher in 1,000 years of peace. So it's not an exaggeration when he says that he believes that the lady is the Holy Spirit. So at some point, this is actually a claim to being Christ. And if we look at the prophecies of what's coming in to usher in 1,000 years of peace, it's Christ himself. And so that, for me, just being a Christian myself, is extremely problematic. Nothing she has said or done is looking like Christ to me. And so that would be a red flag for me as a Christian. I know he's also a Christian. And so that's problematic just in and of itself. She's identifying as the divine feminine. So what is the divine feminine? Is she acting like the divine feminine? Are her actions showing us that she's the divine feminine? I don't think so. I think she's acting more like the shadow, more like this, I don't even know how to pronounce it, Sekhmet? I think Tiff would probably be able to pronounce it. So we have Chris saying he's never had a bad experience and that he's never seen aliens. But yet, if we look at the original drawings that he made of these dark beings with the red eyes, now he doesn't have to call them aliens. I don't really care what he calls them, but they very much look like aliens. So they look like what a lot of experiencers would call aliens. He takes a picture actually at some point with something that looks like a gray. And so he had these beings and he had encounters with shadow beings. His family was absolutely terrified. His abduction scenario was terrifying. He had missing time. His child was terrified. He had a child move out of his house to get away from the shadow beings. And so when I heard him in the space the other night saying, I have never had a bad experience, that made me understand that there's something more going on here. So he's not even saying, look, I had a lot of really bad experiences, but that was necessary in order for me to grow, because this is how a lot of abductees talk, right? Those things were necessary for me, and I had to go through that, etc. He's not even saying that. He's saying he has never had a bad experience. Well, I can pull up his drawings and his own words that show he did have a bad experience. So of course that makes me wonder. And look, Chris, it's amazing that he's now in the community, and we could probably get him into a space now. But I think I heard people actually asking him these direct questions in the space the other night. And he said he has never had a bad experience. So obviously
that's going on there. Because I like Chris too a lot, and we're going to get into some of the Chris Gray stuff, which again, I'm with you. My assessment of the Chris Bledsoe story, honestly, like the least of it is about Chris. It's he seems like a great guy, honest guy. I'm really interested in like the IC people that surround him, and like you, like the entity that he interacts with, that these IC people that surround him are interested in. And the entity and the IC people and Chris all kind of have a different outlook on what's going on there. But with what you're saying, that is true. Like he's spoken about and written about things that are like I would consider negative. And for him to say that, do you think it's just like Stockholm syndrome, or do you think I don't know, maybe even some kind of possession element? You know what I mean?
I don't want to disparage Chris himself, but there's definitely an element of that in the community, just in the abductee community. It's very similar to like when I used to work with a lot of women who were victims of domestic violence. It's the same type of thing we see. We see women, making excuses for the behavior, sticking around, keeping themselves in danger. And these cycles continue over and over and over again. And the only person who can get the woman out of the cycle is actually herself. And it just starts with an awareness and an admission of, hey, this is actually what's happening to me. That's the only way to deal with it. So, there's ideas out there. Is it mind control? Is it just the NHI themselves influencing him so much? Is he aware and decided to take the deal? I've heard that too, but I would never want to explain it for Chris. I can just explain it in general, what happens with abductees. It's very, very common for abductees to excuse the behavior of the entities ripping us out of our beds at night. Very, very common.
Yeah.
Why
I was there when he said
it's really his story to tell.
French, I was there when he said, none of my experience has been negative. Can you point out one that comes to memory, that from Bledsoe's own account?
Well, yeah, his book is full of his family experiencing shadow people, and his family, his son actually moves out of the house to get away from these entities. So if you look at, there's a lot of posts out there.
There's one about like cut Grant Cameron's dog or something like that. Like it's said like a good story of like, oh, Chris healed it, but it's like, well, there's still an entity that just like tried to murder a dog in front of you.
Slit the dog's throat, and then the excuse was, oh, they were just showing me that I could heal the dog. So yeah, it just gets super weird for me. I just take things, okay, so we have Chris saying that he's never had a bad experience and that this is the Holy Spirit. We have Jim Semivan saying she is a trickster, she's not nice, and she's engaged in homoerotic activity.
I'm honestly down to play this through again.
At the same time, in the same context. It just doesn't.
I'm going to play the second part, because yeah, you're right. It doesn't make sense.
Very seriously. But it hasn't been explored. The Catholic Church looked at it, because a lot of the sightings, Medjugorje, Fatima, Lourdes, they were all the Lady Appeared. None of the children that saw any of this ever claimed it was the Virgin Mary. It was just the lady. It was just a lady who showed up.
Right.
Yeah. And I doubt the Virgin Mary had blonde hair and blue eyes. She was Semitic. So, and of course, you know, the lady would lie, and the lady, you know, would scare the living hell out of them, and you know, fire and brimstone sometimes lovely messages. A typical you know, abduction scenario where these beings, you know, come to people and they tell them stories. They have the line about the, you know, the environment and things along those lines, but they're generally there's a trickster element to it. There is a physical, not very nice physical element to it. There's a very strong sexual element to it. It's not, I mean, sexual is homoerotic in some cases.
Well, let me tell you what.
So yeah, very different than how Chris views it, right? And this is somebody who, you know, Jim Semivan and Chris Bledsoe, I think, are still friends. He's had some fallings out with some of these IC guys, but, you know, two very different perspectives. Pretty crazy. Let's maybe continue along a little bit. So we're still in Chris land, but
we heard.
This is why it's all really interesting, because we have all the disclosure pushers, and this is something Ryan Bledsoe said to me in a Discord in I think 2018. I think it was the infamous Tupa Discord back in the day, where he had said that the Bledsoe family and a few other families, like back in like 2013 or like 2012, were told that like they're going to be the disclosure families. There was a few of them, and some of them, I think, I guess, like it just didn't go good, or some of them might have had something crazy happen to them. But basically this idea of like, we needed like in the same way we need a Dave Fravor and a Ryan Graves like on TV saying like flight safety, we're picking these things up on radar. They need like an all-American family to kind of like go through the disclosure process publicly, an all-American experiencer family, mind you, for like the rest of the American families who might be having this, which I always found super fascinating the way he said it back then. And it makes sense, right? You'd kind of want that. And there's no denying, right, that he's kind of, and I wouldn't even say by his own choice, like, you know, he does go on the circuit tour and he does podcasts, but I feel like other people are kind of elevating him more so than he's elevating himself in terms of like the TTSA crowd. And it really hit me when I saw this. This was about last year, I think. It really hit me what Ryan Bledsoe had told me a few years earlier of like, no, like we're one of the disclosure families. Like we're going to be on like TV and stuff. He didn't say it like this, but I when I saw Chris Bledsoe on Fox News, you know, describing like his experiences, and as we've covered already so far, like his experiences include some pretty blue things. I was pretty taken aback, but let's watch this.
From an expert, now let's talk to a witness. Christopher Bledsoe says he's not only seen UFOs, but he can summon them on command. It started when Bledsoe went on a fishing trip in 2007. He says he saw an orb that followed him home, and he still sees the orbs above his house to this day. He's become something of a psychological phenomenon. His experience is so compelling that both NASA and the CIA have studied his brain. Even the History Channel's documenting it. They filmed him IDing an orb live. Watch.
He's pointing now. So maybe he's focusing on one. That would make sense.
He has one. He's got one in the tree line. When we started seeing that intense effort, he spotted an orb in the tree line.
Let's turn it over to Christopher Bledsoe, who personally witnessed UFOs. So, Chris, the CIA is studying you, NASA is studying you, the History Channel is studying you. Tell Jesse Waters Primetime the truth. You can summon alien orbs.
Well, it's been happening for the last 15 years, and I ask them to come, and they come, and I don't know why, but they do. And I've taken 2,500 videos in the last 24 months, like you're seeing there.
How do you ask them?
I just simply say a prayer. That's all I do, and they come.
And do you
think that's how it happens?
Do you think there might be something wrong with you?
No, I don't think so. I think the government's trying to figure out why this is happening. They have been for quite some time.
How did it start?
Well, it started in 2007. I was down on my luck. I'd lost basically everything. After the World Trade Center disaster, I had 100 houses 130 houses a year I was building. I had 70 under construction. And Fort Bragg is where I live in that area, and they stopped buying houses. And with interest rates at 8 and 9% on construction money, then it was flying out the window so fast. I just watched it in a slow motion train wreck, and it got so that I couldn't even buy my children lunch at school after being successful for 20 years.
So you were down on your luck.
Yep. And so I was on the Cape Fear River with 3 other guys and my son, and they were fishing. I just took them there. I was contemplating everything. I was just, I was thinking the worst thoughts, and I was crying.
Okay, so that's kind of the gist of it. I think a lot of us kind of know the story, but I don't know. Do you guys understand my seeing this is a pretty next level ufology kind of thing, and he's on Fox News. You know what I mean? I'm not knocking it, but I think it's just worth noting that he's kind of like the front and center experiencer for a lot of the TTSA crowd, who are the same people getting laws written, talking to lawmakers. You know what I mean? And yeah,
that whole thing where he's talking to, so just to backtrack just a little bit, he's also telling us that the orbs can't hurt us, and we know we have people in the community who have been hurt by the orbs. And so we have a person who has spent 15 days on Capitol Hill, by the way, discussing the phenomenon with Congress, and who knows who else, I didn't get that part, telling this story that the aliens are angels. And it's actually, I've actually been made aware that people like Burchett actually believe that the aliens are angels, and that the reason the government is not disclosing the phenomenon is because it's angels they are hiding. And so it is concerning. It's concerning to me on the face of it. How can all of these things actually be true at the same time? He's going to be making a movie. He's got a second book coming out. And so, he's the face of ufology right now, and it's obviously sanctioned by the people behind the scenes. So it's very interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm with you, because they have different views too, right? Him and the people behind the scenes, they have competing views, like you said. But yeah, Ulrich, what are you thinking, man?
Well, I'm thinking think about what we were talking about before with Carl Sagan, right? Like Carl Sagan is somebody who really captured the hearts and minds of the upcoming engineers and the scientists. If you want to make an apple pie from scratch, you need to first create a universe. He was the Neil deGrasse Tyson. They, moderated the same show. And doesn't the Catholic Church need something for the disclosure of the phenomenon? So doesn't the Catholic Church need its Carl Sagan? And Bledsoe is the Carl Sagan of the Roman Catholic Church. You have, I don't know, who is it? Tim Taylor, Pasolka talks about the hierarchy. What was the thing that we heard in Last Space with Bledsoe repeatedly? These aren't aliens, these aren't aliens, these aren't aliens. I mean, it ultimately doesn't really matter. I'm certain that our current version is extraterrestrial of the human genome. What matters is the intent. And when you call them aliens, it's more easy to view them as something other, as potentially adversarial or deceptive. But any kind of cryptic or paralogical, conflicting communication we're used to from the Bible, we're used to from religions. We accept that anything that's spiritual comes with some sort of poeticness to it. And I was surprised. I mean, why is it so important? There's a Twitter exchange where Bledsoe agrees with Patrick Jackson, like, oh yeah, I agree, they're sentinels, they're here to defend the planet. Patrick Jackson thinks these are AI. So whatever you call it, aliens, NHI, extraterrestrial, sentient plasma, when he's saying they're not aliens, he's saying they're spiritual, they're good, so that you don't question. And this, I'm looking, it's, to me, Tupa, this is like a defanging. This is a domestication. What do you call it when you neuter a dog? And I don't think, like French says, I have yet to hear one person to explain what is the divine feminine that the lady is asking for, because I think the divine feminine is more than just be docile and become defanged. And Bledsoe, look at his mannerisms. He's the most gentle person ever. It's almost like he doesn't want, it's almost like his words can cut and he wants to make sure you don't get a paper cut. He's so gentle, but what is he asking people to do? Absolutely nothing. And I think this is the what is, if you have a communication with something, are they saying, hey, get some extra water, or make sure, that you don't have your money here, or you should expect this? The entire message, the Bledsoe message, is to not do anything. And why would that message even need to be sent? Why would you need to warn somebody that there's nothing to be afraid of? You see an investment in the phenomenon to manipulate perception rather than to adapt to reality. And that's the number one thing I'm skeptical of. Am I making sense? Like, why do they care about perception? Why don't they care about telling us about reality?
I'm with you.
Well,
and I feel for the guy. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it actually goes beyond that too, Ulrich. His message is actually to tell us that these beings are not negative. Because if we believe that the beings are negative, we're going to plunge into some type of darkness. And I'm paraphrasing there. He's saying things like the physical beings are all good. There are no negative physical beings. So those are all angels. Well, just look around our little community here, our little UFO community. Forget all the abduction literature and all the research. Just in our little community, there are many people who would argue that these beings are not good. And so why is he trying to convince us that they're all good? Why is he trying to convince the lawmakers that they're all good? There was something posted today. It was by Jamie, the Gray Area. I asked Chris Bledsoe this question on Instagram. Very simple yet intriguing response. Hi, Mr. Bledsoe. I missed you on your X Spaces the other day and was hoping I could ask you a question. It was mentioned before that the lady said there would be a great deception to paint the phenomenon as evil alien invaders. I was wondering if you believe that's what we are beginning to see take place with the uptick in the interviews referring to the phenomenon as a national security threat. Do you believe there will be an actual staged event by these people to achieve this? Thank you for your time. And he has a very simple reply of yes. So there's a conflict here. He's being put out there. He's the face of disclosure right now. And yet there seems to be a conflict between what he's saying and obviously what Lou Elizondo is saying about these potentially being a threat. So there's definitely a conflict. I don't even know what to make of it.
But there is a clear message too. Were we all in the space when he said that his son was getting scared and he had enough? Like we know experiencers in UFO Twitter who've had a similar thing, like a line gets drawn and they go for the guns. So Bledsoe is, whatever it was, a shotgun or something. He goes for the gun because his kid was getting scared and he runs out. So this is a natural instinct, and it could be an overreaction, right? Like good people have been killed on property as well. But like, his son didn't like mistake somebody for an intruder. It was the phenomenon. So he's going out there because his boundary has been crossed. And then all of a sudden, how do we explain the transition to shame? He even says that the being projected into him, this feeling of shame, and he felt bad and he was trying to hide the gun. He was so filled with shame. So what is the message here? Is the message, obviously the message isn't that you're bad for wanting to protect your family, but that is ultimately the call to action. Put away your guns, put away your nukes, and all you need to do to address the impending trauma is to love harder, but not protect with any teeth. But at the very end of the space, Bledsoe, when pressed, he admitted like, yeah, I went out and I bought a gun. And if we listen to the whole Regulus, the Leo and Regulus thing, you see this contradiction. You see a promise of safety. These things will intervene and prevent any nuclear detonation. And then once we've realized that we're unworthy and we're aggressive and we've destroyed ourselves too much, suggesting nuclear holocaust, then these beings will step in and wag their fingers, slap us on our wrists, and show us a better way. Well, the very Bledsoe story requires our moral failing, our detonations, and it doesn't allow for them to come down finger wagging and saying, see, we told you so. The very Bledsoe story is, without interpretation, is a lie in terms of what the promise is that will protect you from yourselves. Am I making sense? I think that's the most important thing people need to listen to.
Yeah, no, I feel you there. we're gonna continue along here, but with a few more Bledsoe things. When he was in the Logan space, we asked him again about the 2027 thing. Here's just another one on
One
that.
from
Go
Jay
ahead.
Just. She wants,
Yes.
can you elaborate on the 2027 date and just let people know what you were told about that, or what's upcoming here for people?
On mute.
You can hear me.
Yeah, we hear you.
This 2026 date. It's amazing to see everybody just claiming this every day now. It's 2026, 2027, that year. Something's going to happen. Well, let me tell you, in 2013, I was given that date by the lady about a future time that a new knowledge would come and the world would shift into a time of peace afterward, but not without trouble. And that's what she told me, and along with a lot more. But I put it all in writing to a couple of generals at the Pentagon at request of someone from NASA, and it was delivered to them. And immediately they started remote viewing this thing, and have been feverishly in every other avenue they have to look at these timelines. And they all come back saying something's going to happen. Something's going to happen at that time. There's going to be a big shift. Well, there is, but there's a big push to say it's the end of the world. This is going to happen. Well, nobody knows that. It's been twisted negative, and that's not what it was from her. So we'll see what happens then. But I think we're going to go through some much more strenuous times between now and then, and we'll come out the other side a different humanity with an understanding that, we're not alone, that this Darwin evolution thing was crazy to even suggest to start with. The most complex machine ever created is a human body. And for some scholar to say it just happened by an accident and that we all crawled out of a mud puddle, it's just the lamest excuse I ever heard. It's like they don't have an answer, so they make such an argument. But all that's going to go away, and that changes everything. All the way schools are taught from children's to, it's a new knowledge. It's just a new world coming, and us older people will fade away, and the new kids coming along will be smarter in every way, connected to something that we've all been told doesn't exist. So that's kind of what I see coming there.
Okay, I think I kind of see this within Jolly too a little bit, and not even to say whether her experiences are real or fake or anything like that, but it seems like a lot of these people are like Stockholm syndrome, the upcoming catastrophe. Like they, like in their mind, they are mentally preparing for like a lot of people to die, but for that to be like a beautiful thing kind of thing, which to me honestly just kind of rings back to that Heaven's Gate kind of mentality. Like sure, like Chris Bledsoe, and again, like I like Chris a lot. I think he's a very good, nice person. But when I hear these people kind of like embrace the upcoming harvest idea, not even saying there is one, as like a beautiful thing, it kind of reminds me of that Stockholm syndrome stuff.
Yeah, it's that same type of stuff. And I think the bottom line with the story here is it's full of contradiction, and there can be things that appear to be a contradiction, but they really aren't. And once they're explained and the full story is told, it turns out there was no contradiction at all. But on the surface of everything I've heard, it appears that there's a lot of contradiction in the story, and it doesn't seem like he can even see it. And I will go so far as to say a lot of people can't see it. I was listening to people in the space, and all they wanted to talk about is the when they met Chris, and they were kind of elevating themselves by being associated with him. I got a super weird, it's so funny. People call me and Ulrich and Tiff the doomers. They say we're in a cult or something. Well, the way people were acting in the space the other night was a little creepy to me. And so we have these beings. His job is to tell us these beings are all good. And I think he went so far as to say to someone there was actually nothing we could do. somebody said, well, what can we do? And I think he said nothing. And maybe I heard that wrong, but I'm almost positive that's what he said.
No, 100%. You're like you said, the other thing too, he says every single experience was positive. And Jay just asked the question, how can we change anything when we're, our leaders are essentially corrupt? We're going, and Bledsoe said, there's absolutely nothing you can do. And that's what I'm saying. Why are we just managing perception of a negative event? And why are we vilifying dealing with a negative event? Like, when in American culture have we said that the person who yells fire in a crowded theater when there is fire is bringing about the fire? And you have the love and light community. Some people are the biggest doomers ever in the love and light community because they know it's coming. They're saying it's coming. And their message is to just view it in a positive light, right? Like, you need to welcome the plasma. But if you embrace it positively, you're going to be able to choose your next, I don't know, soul.
Well, you're going to ascend to 5D. If you positively 5D. Stand out and embrace the micronova radiation, you will ascend to 5D. I mean, I'm not even joking. That's exactly what they think. As long as we keep our vibration high and positive and ignore actual reality, you will ascend to 5D with the micronova.
Yeah.
Right. And why would that need a campaign? If you have good things coming up, why do you need a campaign to warn people of how positive something is? That's really where it breaks down for me.
Yeah, let's continue along because there's a lot more to go through here, but this is a great discussion. Now we're about to get pretty dark, which I don't even know if you guys have ever seen the full video or the full extent of this, but I think it's really worth coming for. If either of you guys wants to hop out or hop back in, feel free to. But so I think some of my audience knows I've talked about this. There's a group within this movement that is very interested in narrative control and really intricate data collection, doxing, harassment, and whatnot. And one of the previous little quote unquote attack dogs ended up murdering his father, stabbing him 110 times, and sent the video to a bunch of people in the UFO community and on UFO Twitter. Now, what's interesting about this to what we're talking about today is not only was this guy an attack dog, and some people in the community like Stephen Cambion put this murder 100% on Bledsoe. I don't at all. I want to be clear. He also emailed a bunch of people in the UFO community. I don't think they were responsible for the murder. But this person, Christopher Gray, at the time, as I understand it, was serving as a liaison between random people on the internet and Chris Bledsoe for healings. So if somebody he found on Twitter, he was just one of these really passionate UFO people. He found on Twitter that they were seeing UFOs or something like that. He would message them, comment underneath them, start up a conversation, and eventually, at various times, this would lead to. He was a big Chris Bledsoe guy. He was in communication with Chris Bledsoe, and he helped, like I said. And again, I don't think Chris Bledsoe was sending people out to do this, but I think people had heard that he can heal, or he healed so-and-so's cancer, right? So when that's even just out in the zeitgeist and people go looking for that, they're going to obviously come across Chris. And I think he had a few people doing this for him. And not only that, we're going to play this video where Moran Lerner, one of the people who was attacked by this group and investigated, not only was he in communication with Chris Bledsoe, but by his own account, Christopher Gray says he was in communication with the lady. And, it's kind of a graphic thing, but he's talking about the Chris Bledsoe lady in his murder confession audio after he had just murdered his dad.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's really dark, but I do think we should go there. And again, there's the element of I don't want to make light of what happened, but also there's something else to consider. This murder, people were not allowed to talk about it in the UFO community. People were doxxed and harassed for even talking about it because of how close this guy was affiliated with Chris Bledsoe and how Chris Bledsoe is kind of a big person in this movement. And again, I don't attribute any of this to Chris Bledsoe. I think Chris Bledsoe just has an engaging story. What's up?
Real quick, Panda. What's the movement you're talking about? Is this the one you referenced a while back when we were? What's the movement you're talking about?
What do you mean? Wait, sorry.
You said Chris Bledsoe was heavily involved in the movement, or paraphrasing that.
Just disclosure. Disclosure. He's he's elevated, I would say, amongst other experiencers. He's on Fox News. He's got all the TTSA guys going to his house, that kind of thing is what I meant. So if there was and again, I'm not even saying all the movers and shakers, but there was documented doxing and harassment campaign for people to not talk about this because disclosure, the disclosure movement, right? Like something like this getting out and being publicly attributed to Chris Bledsoe. I don't do that, but it could hurt things. But let's just play this. Moran Lerner explains a little bit too. We're gonna hear the audio. I'm curious what you guys think, because I leave the room for that. He was in contact with something, and I think Fringe and Doomer, and I know Tupa for sure, like, a lot of these school shooters say they hear voices and stuff like that. And sure, like schizophrenia is a thing, but I do think there's like a really negative element to this stuff. So let's just play it.
Lerner speaks on Christopher Gray.
There was a murder in February last year that was covered on Steve Cambier.
And that's Moran Lerner, by the way. There's no picture of Christopher Gray in this one. This is the guy who investigated it. And
Show, and I'm not going to go into all too much detail about it, but the murderer was Christopher Gray, who was very close to Jonathan Davies. Jonathan has been trying to say that he wasn't that close. They just exchanged a few messages about.
Jonathan Davies is thanked in Lou Elizondo's book Imminent, by the way.
A bit of research about NASA and this, that. They were close. They were doxing and threatening people. They used to threaten people and warn them, anyone that would listen, warn them not to talk to me, and I will show evidence of this. They doxed Deep. They doxed numerous people. Christopher Gray.
That's Deep Prasad, by the way, back in 2020. And Deep Prasad is someone who's been attacked by Christopher Gray and one of these new modern iteration trolls. I won't even say his name, but we all know who I'm talking about. And he says, Deep Prasad, very smart, very capable man. He's like, no, it's the same group that was directing Christopher Gray, and that is kind of directing some of these newer attack dogs. These are like generation 5 or 6, but it's really disturbing that, again, this happened in this community. And instead of the community being like, well, what just happened? Like, let's take a breather, let's break check and see what's going on. No, people were doxxed and harassed for even talking about this murder. It's so crazy, but continue.
So threatened numerous people. He would send people photos of their homes, their work. It was just a crazy time. But it wasn't just Christopher Gray. Jonathan Davies and many others in their group used to do this to so many people. But here is an example of Christopher Gray's account, UFO researchers speaking with Jonathan Davies, I Want to Know UK. There it is, Jonathan telling him about his aliens that landed outside his house, all of his long exposure photos. What's important is the dates. This took place on the 8th of February, exactly 2 weeks before the murder. And it is not just the activists and the believers and the experiencers that are part of this. There are many people pretending to be skeptics who are pushing the same narratives and the same cults, multiple cults. It is dangerous, and you need to all be aware of it. Here is the email. The email that Christopher Gray sent to multiple people on email on the Taxa Party email list, which is a confession of what he had done. And it's quite critical, the wording that he uses, and you will see how it ties into the Bledsoes. And I will also do something quite frightening for many, but quite important. And I will play you the original audio, the audio confession that he makes during the act. So let's read his email. Before I do, this email was sent to numerous people. Evaluation Guy is the name that he used. Christopher Gray used for his Skype account, which he used to Skype several people and he used to threaten them. But if you look at the type of people in this thread, Eric Davis, Frank Milben, Robert Morningstar, Jim Peniston, Russian TV of all people. There's Hal Puttoff, Tucker Carlson from Fox News received this. Michael Moran again. That'll become Imported later, there's Jackson Farty. Silver Record, so that's Danny Silver. You got people from the New York Times here. There's me, Moran Lerner, Bruce Maccabee, Christopher Mellon, Luis Alexander, George Schnapp, Nick Pope, even Susan Goff to her military email address received this, Tom DeLong, Kit Green. It's pretty much anyone who's anyone. The man talking is my brother, so he's referring to the audio that I will play to you shortly, who maybe took part in trying to explode something bad and frame Jesus, e.g. to make the Antichrist. God is not happy. I can forgive you all, but the lady is here. She will judge people. There is the reference to the lady from the Bledsoe cult. It's Ashtar Command stuff, Day the Earth Stood Still. P.S. My name is Christopher Lindsay Gray, sadly, son of Alexander Gray. He's fine, but nobody come near me. There are lots of time travels here watching everything you do. So don't even think about doing bad things ever. Never lie to me. It will be documented. Don't like being tried to be repeatedly framed and murdered. It gets boring eventually. God is watching all of you and can see what you're thinking. So please, never come near me. Something is inside my neck. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. E.T. put it there or somebody did. Never get caught going against the true God. Satan is not the true God. It was a trick. There are lots of time-traveling races watching all your actions, aka Ashtar Command. Please be nice and nobody ever dream of harming another innocent, e.g. one of the Bledsoe's cousins, etc., etc. Touch anybody linked to me, and your trials won't go down well. E.T. can read thoughts. Don't ever think of harming me or my family. Speak to the Queen about it if you have questions. Seriously, kind regards.
Do any of you guys have any thoughts on that email? Real quick, I'll just say some of the things that stick out to me. If we play the audio,
I mean, he sounds delusional, Red. He sounds completely delusional. I did speak with somebody because I'm not very familiar with this case at all. I spoke to somebody about it.
it's very hush hush under the
Folks out
record.
there.
Yeah, go for it.
This person said that he was delusional. He was actually trying to find Bledsoe, like maybe trying to go to his house. I don't know, but that he was actually trying to find Bledsoe and that he was delusional. So that's all I really know about it. And it sounds just from his email that he's delusional.
Yeah, and that's fair, but I'll put some stuff in the description after for people who want to read more into this or learn more about this. But he was very connected to people, and he just kind of went crazy, I think, is what it was. And I think here, this is kind of that state, because he was pretty normal before. That's the other thing too, right? It was kind of like a flip with him.
Well,
the only reason, yeah, go for it.
So this could speak to being involved with these entities, right? If he's saying he's seeing the lady and he's talking to the Ashtar Command, I'm not going to say he had schizophrenia and that this didn't happen. I would be leaning toward the possibility that he's actually being visited by entities. I mean, they're very, the symptoms, et cetera, sound very similar. I would definitely not be able to diagnose him online, but I think either one of those things is possible.
Yeah, and maybe to save some time, we won't play the audio because that does you kind of get the gist of it in the email. The audio is out there if anyone wants to listen to it, but he just kind of says a lot of the same thing, which I just, the whole time travelers are here. I find interesting. The lady is coming. I find interesting. That kind of speaks to this whole kind of like imminent. Oh, got 2 Ulrichs. Hell yeah. What's up, other Ulrich?
No, we absolutely cannot do 2 Ulrichs.
I'm switching devices. Forgive me.
And then there's this whole thing about the Ashtar Command, which I find interesting, and maybe we'll just go to the next slide here, because that's a name that comes up with